This is Tristan Merl's exploration of the instrumental space of technology and planning, Episode 4, Chatting with Shannon. Good morning, Shannon. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. So this is a short intro. Can you just tell me like what you're doing now? Obviously expand on your studies, those kind of things. Yeah.
Oh, sure. So I'm Shannon Fisher. I've done my undergrad in urban and regional planning at WITS, and I'm now doing my honors in urban regional planning, hoping to do my master's in urban design. And my research right now is exploring the impact of urban design, spatial elements on well-being, and how digital mapping and digital technologies can facilitate the measurement of well-being and just of spaces, and how we can integrate digital technology into urban design and urban planning.
Thank you very much. I actually forgot how well we align on the digital technology things there. That's going to be helpful. Yeah, so to jump right in, this was what I was like, what technologies have you used like this year or planning to use this year or have you used in the past to kind of like push your work in your undergrad or postgrad to like that next level? Um,
I mean, like other than the like default technologies we use for our assignments, like AutoCAD, SketchUp, GIS, I think I've really been trying to explore the extent of like ArcGIS because I think they have so many tools. And I think that's what's particularly interesting to explore in my research, just how to use these digital tools um, in the urban planning world. So like ArcGIS Survey 123, which is a like survey like digital mapping tool to kind of I mean, like in my research, I'm using it to measure like qualitative data, which I think is a particularly difficult thing to measure in a way that's kind of um, like more objective and more like, comparing apples to apples. Whereas like quantitative data is so much easier to measure because it's like numbers versus numbers. Um, so I definitely just the whole like suite of um, applications that ArcGIS has. I feel like there's so many. I actually am forgetting some of their names, but there's Survey 123. I think um, there's a there's a digital twin one. There's a there's I think just like yeah, the whole suite of ArcGIS apps, and I think like Adobe, because I think I definitely lean more to the creative pursuits of urban planning and urban design. So and like data visualization. So Adobe Suites, and also like their AI integration. So I don't know if you've heard about the Photoshop AI beta,
yeah.
but I think that's particularly interesting on how it will transform the way, like even for like architects, how you do mock-ups for like that all of that used to be hand drawn and hand rendered, but now with the like integration of AI, you can just throw in a few keywords and create a digital version of a mock-up in seconds. So I think those like I think the like marriage between AI to kind as an assistant with these digital technologies of like mapping, measuring, capturing data in really visually interesting ways so that you can kind of translate this like bunch of information that we as planners are always collecting and always trying to make meaningful, and making them meaningful in different ways so that it's more engaging for stakeholders, the audience, participants, and also just for ourselves. Yeah.
No, definitely. I think that flows like quite smoothly into my next question with the AI integration in the university workflow. Because Aviva and I were talking about so this Photoshop thing that you just mentioned, and
Hmm.
where it lies or where its place should be in like the creative process, right? Because
Hmm.
like obviously there's still value to like the hand drawn like aspect to like think through a problem. Um, but now you can really speed up those kind of processes, or like the visualization of like what you want. But is that as ethically sound? Like, is using this, for example, this Photoshop thing to edit and completely design the street on the way that you like wanted it, or as close as you can get with AI, obviously, is that a good first step? Like where do you think that lies in the creative process? Do you think it should replace that sketch phase? Um, like, is it a
Y-
better version of the sketch phase that reduces that skill level a little bit, or like what do you
You
think
know,
about that?
I think it's super controversial. And I think like with huge change in how we do things, it'll always come with some friction and some, pullback. But I think what we did in the past and our more traditional methods of capturing data, translating data, visualizing data, and creating like content and like create like researching, I think was relevant for that time. But I think we're going into an increasingly digital age, and I think with that we need to reinvent and transform the way we do research, the way we capture data, the way we learn, the way we just kind of navigate all aspects of life. And I think that AI being part of our society and being part of what we do, it's an unavoidable reality. It's going to seep into everything we do. And I think kind of fighting against it, I don't think will be beneficial. I think I don't know. I think we need to adapt with it. And I think it's a really great and helpful tool. And I don't think it takes any credence away from the person using it. I think it's just an assistant that allows us to use it to create things that go far beyond what we could have created before in such a smaller time frame. So I would say that we should not see AI as something that's hindering the learning process or hindering the creative process. I do have like different opinions, particularly with artistic expression, because AI is an algorithm that kind of aggregates
Yeah,
a
like
huge
copyright.
source of information. Exactly. And I do think that ethically, copying different artists' work to create an original work is ethically, not okay. I think artists should definitely, like using artists' work where they don't get any like sort of recognition or like credence, acknowledgement, or payment, but then creating something off of that, I don't think is okay. But I think aside from that, I think even in universities, I think we're going to need to restructure the way that we teach content, the way that we learn, the way that we test, the way that we do these things. But I don't think that being really firm and being like, no, you cannot use AI because, this is like, you need to learn the content yourselves. I don't think using AI makes you not learn the content. I think I mean, if you're like saying AI, write me this paper and copying and pasting it, I think that is like, you know, an easy way out where you're kind of cheating the system. But I think it can be like when the internet came, sure, like before the internet, when you're doing research, you'd have to go through encyclopedias and huge sources of knowledge to get the information that you needed to do. Once the internet came about, you could just Google search the information in such a shorter time frame. And it didn't mean that because you didn't go through a library of books that you didn't like
Engage
know
with
the
the
knowledge
content. Yeah.
and engage with the content. I think it's you're adapting to the digital world, like AI is a reality, and being able to work with it and learn to almost kind of like refine your working process in a way that's concurrent with the trends of reality,
Yeah.
allows you to be so much more innovative. If you're spending less time just kind of thinking about a structure for an essay, you can spend more time finding more innovative, creative ways to like engage in the essay and engage in like a rendering process. And like a rendering process, say you're making like a render of like an interior design, for example, what would take you a whole day to create, you could create like three in like an hour, let's say. That allows for, if you're spending less time just creating a model, you can try and test so many different things, and the end product is going to be, I think, so much like such a higher quality. I don't like. I think in conclusion, I don't think we should like fight against this new technological wave. I think it's different. It's crazy, crazily powerful, and I think it's got so many cool possibilities. And I think if we work with it instead of against it, I think we can like do amazing, incredible
Yeah.
things and really like spend less time on the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
And
I
like,
think it's definitely going to save a lot of time with doing a lot of things. So it's a force
yeah,
multiplier. It's going to amplify your individual or personal abilities there.
mm,
I do see a problem coming up, especially with the pricing. Is it's going to be quite exclusive. So what nice right now with AI is it's been free, but the
yeah,
Photoshop thing is a great example. It's you need Photoshop to be able to use the Photoshop integration with AI. So it's gonna be interesting to see the space of like how companies or even like the north south divide like globally handles that kind of thing. Because if you're not privileged enough to be able to buy the software or pay for the software, um, yeah, it's you're going to be left
and
behind
you're being
in quite a big
excluded.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. Um, then moving on to the one of the last things I want to ask you is what's your opinion on internet scraping and like the current like direction of data capture? Like think of like Facebook's algorithms or like the way Spotify can tell if you've recently gone through a breakup or anything like that. Like ethically, do you think it's okay to be collecting that kind of data? Um, well, yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Um, interesting. Can I hop on the pricing point
Yeah, jump
um
there.
a bit just before that? I think the pricing thing is super interesting because it's like it obviously takes like resources and like people to create these extensive, really powerful softwares. But I think um these softwares are no longer becoming like a luxury or a premium. It's becoming standard in like your career or in the industry. And I think that, I mean, I so fully believe in like accessibility for students, especially like I think, especially when you're in your student phase and you're studying, you should be exposed to these softwares and learn how to use them and learn what they're about, so that you have a like toe in the water of the huge like ocean that is digital technologies, and how that can change, impact, and influence and like mold and shape like your creative work, whether it's in urban planning, urban design, or even in other professional fields. And I think that, so I would say, like, I do think that um, like pricing like should be a thing, so that for equitable wages for the people who are creating the software. But I do think that it should be open source or free for students. And I know a lot of sites. I know like ArcGIS during the COVID time had like their ArcGIS Pro was free for students,
Yeah.
and obviously you go through like a validation phase to prove that you are a student. But it's closed now. But I do think that it should be free for students, and I think all of these softwares should be free for students, because I think you should be exposed to that. And like by
Yeah.
not being exposed to that, you're kind of furthering that equity divide, that's inequity, of like, okay, cool, you don't have the money to access this, then you're going to be cut off from this whole world. And it's becoming like it's not optional anymore. It's not like you can get a job and say, hey, I have never been exposed to this digital technology, but I can do all of this. They're like, these are requirements, like proficiency in like even Word, Excel, PowerPoint, like those are
You have
mandatory
to do
now.
it. Yeah.
So these specialized softwares, which would take so much like effort to like learn, especially if you've never been exposed to it before, it's like such a foreign field. And I think that it just further perpetuates this exclusivity and this inequality and this divide. And I think that education should be accessible, like full stop. And you should be able to engage in like the reality of this digital age that we're in today.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
then and then, sorry, on your second point, the like internet scraping, data collection. I think that data is important. I think data is so important in decision making, in like every aspect of decision making. I think and informative decision making. I think it's important to create models. I think it's important to interpret what's happening. If you don't have information, if you don't have data, you're essentially blind. But I do think that people should be in control of their data, especially like online, because I think there's so many cases of and I think like especially when we like the internet and online like social media started becoming a thing, your online privacy, there wasn't, because it was such a new territory, your online privacy wasn't really thought of, you know. Companies are selling your data and you're not even sure how they're selling your data, how they're using your data to construct a profile of you to create targeted ads. So I think that it's really important to have data to create these models, to create these algorithms, to create these, you know, digital twins, to create these really informative like digital technologies that really like essentially will help us create a better society and create a better city and like a more sustainable, equitable, like human settlements. But I do think that for the most part, it should be consensual, whether it's a privacy policy that people are hopefully reading, knowing how knowing exactly how your data is going to be used and making that process like really transparent. I think just kind of like making a really long terms and conditions that nobody reads and clicking up accepts, I don't think that's transparency. I think people should know exactly how their data is being used, like and what it's being used for. Not just, oh, we're collecting data. It should be like anonymous. It should be used only for creating these technologies. It shouldn't be like tied to anyone. It should be
almost like our
only in person.
surveys. It's there.
Yeah.
Right, this is what we're doing. We need this kind of data for this exact thing.
And it's like anything goes into like the ethics of research, which we're doing right now. You need a participant information sheet. Participants need to be fully aware of what they're engaging in and how their information is going to be used, and then they need to like permit that. It's not just like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. So
That's a good point.
So I think. So like, and I think social media is a bit more difficult because it's like when you're on social media, you're not thinking, oh, if I tweet this one thing, it's going to be used for this like research project on this thing. But I think maybe social media like privacy policies should kind of acknowledge that the information here is very public, and I think public places, public information should have this an almost blanket, as long as it's not being abused, an almost blanket permission to use without like not commercially like for pay, like to be paid or anything, but
society.
But like maybe just mentioning like in the privacy policy, hey, your information is public and people can publicly access it and use it for these different methods, not to abuse it, But I think it's essential. Like I think you can't progress a society without information, but I think it shouldn't be a top-down process. I think it should be participatory, where you know what you're getting into, and it's a collaborative process where you're co-creating. You're co-creating a better future, a better human settlement, a better city. Knowing, okay, I know that these people are like with my activity. They know that there's so many, like a lot of people in this one place, and I'm part of that. And then they're going to know that, oh, we need to make a higher quality place for pedestrians, but not, oh, okay, this person's passing here and like listening in on you and kind of being like, oh, okay, you just, like you said, you just went through a breakup. Let me suggest like product. I don't think it should be in a capitalist thing. I think it's the biggest thing. Like companies should not be trying to profit off of your personal data, which I think is happening a lot with targeted ads, etc. So as long as it's not super rooted in capitalism and like profit, like pursuing profit, I think it could be for the better of society.
I think that's a perfect note to end on, the idea of a collaborative process to better society.
Absolutely.
But then a final surprise question is, what song are you listening to right now that you're kind of enjoying?
Right now, oh my gosh. Probably okay. It's called Ordinary People. I think it's Ordinary People Like Jazz, or Jazz is for Ordinary People by Berlioz.
Thank you very much for listening to my podcast about the instrumental space of technology and planning.
I have linked below a short playlist to just some of the songs that me and my colleagues are listening to right now. It's a nice way just to relax and reflect on technology in this space we're in.